experienced some silly speeds on off-road all-terrain tires here on Driving.ca before, but I think today's takes the cake. This is the new Land Rover Defender Octa, a truck that puts out 626 horsepower, sure, but it can also go properly fast with proper composure on the road. First things first, this here Octa is not a Bronco Raptor. This thing is not meant to go off jumps. What it is, however, is built by a guy who led the Raptor program, as well as the Ford GT, both of them in fact. This is a very serious rig, and one that's meant to go over some really gnarly terrain at tremendous speed. Not only that, it can carry that speed on the tarmac too. I can't self-incriminate with that, but suffice it to say, they have actually done quite an excellent job here of delivering something that really does offer an answer to most anything. So what is it that makes all that possible? Well, the cool thing is that this here Defender doesn't have sway bars. Those bars, which usually link both sides together, front and rear, so that if one side squats, the other side does too and keeps the car steady, those are gone here. Instead, we have a clever hydraulic system, but they haven't had to go crazy like Porsche does. It just runs off of regular 12 volt, running through clever tri-valve dampers, which run hydraulic response for jounce as well as compression and rebound, and then the usual air springs on top for selectable ride height. We get a whole lot of off-road capability, the ability to basically run as though you had sway bar or just eliminate that altogether straight away, or on top of that, the ability to keep this thing really taut and square as you load it up through high-speed cornering on tarmac. Broken out on tarmac with launch control enabled, power comes from an evolution of the BMW S68 4.4-liter twin-turbo hot VV8. That is developed by Rover SVO in conjunction with BMW. This S68 has developed now into something that they call the NC11. It's running a mild hybridized system, which affords a bit of torque infill to make up for turbo lag. That lag, of course, is pretty minimal to begin with, though. These BMW 4.4s were the first to the game with the hot VV8 configuration. That means you've got really short intake runners and turbochargers in between the cylinder banks. It just pressurizes right up, fills with boost, and gives you all that torque right from 1800 RPM. The thing friggin' goes, and with 626 horsepower, 553 pound-feet, you're good for a claimed 3.8 seconds. Put your foot into it, and it sounds sorta good. But that is one of the slight disappointments, because while you do get some noise from up front, this isn't the good old AJ V8. It's not a silly Jag SVR burble out back. It's civilized, and that is a good thing, but it would be nice to feel a little more occasion from out behind. If I'm gonna put it in jerk-off mode, I want it to be indulgent. Of course, the indulgence comes elsewhere, and a big part of that is just on approach. This thing sits with such stance. Rover has embiggened this here Defender by 3 centimeters in height and nearly 7 centimeters in width. This is a big boy. They actually wanted to go even bigger so they could fit even meatier tires under it. But this thing also needs to sell in Europe, so you're gonna have to make do with big, broad 275mm section tires. Those tires are 33s. They mount to 20-inch wheels or optional 22s, but the 20s with a good bit of sidewall are what you want. Rover says they've thought about doing 35s, but they don't want to compromise that on-road handling with that extra sidewall. Fair play there. After all, there is the Raptor if you want that really soft, mushy impact absorption. But these are slightly different markets because beneath it all, this is still a Rover Defender. And of course, Defenders are no longer tractors. They're quite plush vehicles. We've tested these a lot on Driving.ca. This here, as an SVO model, is meant to be very high in performance, but also quite up there on the luxury. With that, we can do all the usual leathers or synthetics, whatever. It's a comfy vehicle. You can watch our regular Rover Defender reviews for that. What matters here, though, is that going across some really punishing surfaces, with the exception of a bit of booming and droning over washboards at what I must admit are higher speeds than we can even go on highways at home in Canada, this thing just takes it. It eats it up. And I've had a sore back after working on my AMC this past week, but I've been quite well treated in here. Seat ventilators on, I have not been getting swampy here in the South African heat. It's just a delight. Now, all of this comes at a price. In Canada, that means 175 before you start putting stuff into it. That means that this is a $250,000 rig. Now, are people going to be bashing $250,000 rigs with quite the vigor that we have here in South Africa? Well, when one hits the local fleet, I know that we will be, but I can't necessarily speak to the Yorkville crowd. With that being said, it is a handsome, impressive, and just interesting vehicle to be in the presence of. I moan a lot about people just status signaling with Rovers and G-Wagons and whatnot, but at least this one does something pretty neat. And for that, I am on board. For Driving.ca, I'm Al Alder.